I am a little bit older than you, not by much, granted, but I'm more of a Generation X, or I would say you're millennial. Would you call it? I mean, I don't want to classify it, but in terms for everybody to know how the age
90s
difference here.
baby.
Yeah, 90s baby. So I grew up with the NES. I love the NES. I know I don't want to be biased towards that, but it's my favorite system. And I want to know, as somebody, I've been watching you stream Mega Man, Castlevania, go through these games, and you're killing it, by the way, going through these games. They're tough. It's quite an accomplishment when you go through these games. I want to know for you, what are some of your favorite games, and what is about those era of 8-bit games, the NES, even Super Nintendo, if you want to throw in there, but stick to NES if you want. What is about those games that you like? As somebody like me growing up with them, I'd like to know from a younger person, what works for you and what doesn't work for you, and just what are some of your games that you really, really enjoy from that era.
Sure. So I have a unique perspective in that I grew up in the 3D era with the N64 being my first console. I did own a Game Boy Color, so don't get me wrong, I was playing,
Dragon Quest Monsters, right?
single bit games. Yeah, Dragon Warrior Monsters and
Mm-hmm.
the Pokemons. So
Mm-hmm.
I did like that simple pixel style. But I was always curious about the generations before. I remember hearing people talk about like the good old days, like the Super Nintendos and the Super Mario Worlds. And so
Yeah.
any chance that I had to experience older games, I was really excited. And there are the beautiful thing about the NES library is that a lot of the classics are playable somewhere. I can think about specific moments in my life going into like a shopping mall, and then you're playing like Super Mario Bros. 3 like in the little kiosk, and like kids
Oh,
are
that's cool.
gathering and stuff.
Yeah.
And I appreciate some of the services that come out. When I got my 3DS, I had downloaded freaking Blaster Master,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
the original Castlevania, and then a couple other NES games. And even before that, when I had a GameCube and I had Animal Crossing, this is like my second 3D producing console, the Animal Crossing game allowed you to collect classic games and to put them inside of your house. So
Oh,
I
that's right.
remember my first one was goddamn Clue Clue Land, and it was an awful introduction.
Oh, that was your first NES game you played.
Technically,
I didn't know
yes.
that. I knew Cuckoo Land was a mapper's joke, and you guys didn't like. I didn't know that was the first one. Okay,
It's
or maybe
both.
I did and I didn't remember. But
It's
yeah,
bad.
wow.
Yeah, I think even in that first episode, we're talking about fuck Clue Clue Land, so it's a
Yeah.
running gag.
So,
But it's my first NES game, and then later I did get like Ice Climber and Balloon Fight, which are much better at conveying the NES experience, I think, anyway.
yeah, platformers for ice climbers. You got kind of like a flying, like more of a skill-based arcade game in Balloon Fight.
Yep. And so to this day, even like on the Switch, I'll still boot up some NES games. I do tend to prefer if there is a more polished version of a game. So for instance, with Dragon Quest 1 through 3, I preferred playing the Super Nintendo translation or they weren't even localized, but somebody did translations of the Super Famicom versions.
Yes.
I enjoyed those. I enjoyed the remakes of the Super Mario Bros. 1 through 3.
Yeah, the All Stars versions. Yep.
But the one I played was the one on the Wii, so like take that for what you
Oh
will.
yeah, the
But
one with the yeah.
it's still good for what it is.
Yep.
And then I don't dislike playing all NES. Like I enjoyed playing like the Castlevanias and the Mega Mans, as you were saying. There can be an issue with them being too cryptic for me. So I've just had to navigate that in my head because I don't want to not play a game for that reason, but I also don't love just having a guide open at every moment. So my feelings on NES games are sort of mixed in that way. Ideally, I'd like to just be able to boot up a game and to be challenged and to try and figure stuff out myself. But sometimes when it's like burning a tree at a random location for no apparent reason other than it's where the developer put it there, I'm not exactly enticed to try that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those games you're referring to, Zelda, a lot of that stuff is explained in manuals, and if you don't have the manuals and the literature that comes with the game, you're missing that explaining to you before you play the game. So it's harder to really understand why you're doing things like that. A lot of NES games are like that, which
And that's
is a fair point.
an unfortunate footnote with my experience is that I've never owned an NES. I've never
Mm-hmm.
owned even like a original Super Nintendo. You know, the oldest actual hardware I own is the Sega Genesis, but
Yeah.
I got that after the fact too. But you know, it's a different time and a different era, and
Yeah.
you know, in an era now where manuals are completely digital, if
Yeah.
there at all. You know, it's a lost art, and I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate that.
Exactly.
I do like
I
that. It's just
Yeah.
when you make these libraries, you know, and it's not apparent like you should check the manual.
Yeah. I
Some of that
think
is lost. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think a lot of these they just dump when you dump these games on the service. It's cool that they're there, but if you're trying them for the first time, it can be a little confusing. Even some of the NES games on a Switch, like you mentioned, you play like that one game on there I was playing. It's like a top-down shooter game. I didn't know what you had to do, and I had to look up a manual to figure out. I think a lot of these games they put on, they should package with a little PDF you can go through, maybe scan your phone and see what's that would help out a lot, you know.
Yeah, something for convenience sake. Because I mean, I know you can like open the manual, like even like before you
Hmm.
start a game on 3DS, it's like game start and instruction manual.
Yeah, some of the 3DS stuff have manuals you can look at. Yeah.
As far as favorites go, I mean, I can really only go off like nostalgia's sake from
Hmm.
and through like the emulated perspective. But I could tell
Yeah.
you like the ones that I've played in those ways and that I have enjoyed and probably like maximized in some ways. So, oh, and that I guess I was wrong. Alex did send me an Atari 2600. I just never, I never hook it up. So
Oh.
yeah,
Yeah, Atari is not really my. I don't want to bash on Atari because it's important, but I was never really into Atari much.
interesting. But favorites, Castlevania 1,
Hmm. Good one.
Mega Man 1.
Oh, one. You're going with one. Nice. I like that. One is very good.
Having
Yeah.
beaten all
One is
six.
very. It's good. Yeah, I know. Yeah, you beat all six, and I think one. I kind of agree with you. One is very. It doesn't get as much. It has problems for sure, but it's simpler. It's not as many bosses. It's besides the one boss. You know, the red yellow devil can be a pain, but I think it's a decent game.
Mario 3,
Hmm.
Kirby's Adventure, and Donkey Kong.
Oh, okay. I was not expecting that one. Okay.
Yeah, I like Junior, but
Nice.
I played more
Yeah.
Donkey Kong.
Yeah. See, I haven't played much of Donkey Kong at all, or Junior, to be honest. You probably played more than I have.
Hmm. One game that you were talking about recently, I would like to be more into, but I've just never. And maybe it's just a commitment thing. I've never finished the original Shadowgate, and I would love to. I've played it a lot of
Oh,
times.
yeah. Yeah. I saw you stream. I think you streamed it once. You tried it, the remake of it.
Yeah, I did try streaming because I had the
I think you
PC
tried
out.
streaming it. Yeah.
Right.
I think they remade it. Yeah. It's a decent game. I mean, if you got to really put in time for it, but it's not a long game once you get it down.
Hmm.
It's funny. I would like to play that as well myself.
It's a complicated one where the second that you look up advice,
Hmm.
you just ruin the freaking game for yourself.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You got to really figure it out yourself because otherwise you're just following a list of steps to do, and it's not that fun.
I liked your idea of sitting in a retirement home with a bunch of other old people and figuring it out together
Yeah,
as like a
that's my
break.
idea of like fun. Yeah, yeah. I'm hoping for that time I can sit with a whole bunch of people my age and just get our medicine and just sit around playing NES someday.
Hmm. Yeah, those are the picks I can think of, and maybe more will come.
No, that's a good picks, man. And I like that. Thank you for sharing that. I like to hear from anybody why they like the NES games because I think a lot of them still hold up very well today.
I
That's
do
my whole
like
point.
Blaster Master. It's just I think it was a platform
Oh,
thing. I was playing it on the 3DS and like the screen
mhm.
size, and I think I would enjoy it now. But credits, having limited credits for that seems weird.
Yeah, yeah. I will say one thing about Blaster Master. It's fun, but it's a lot. It's fun in the way that you get a little further each time, and then you go, oh, okay, I know what to do. Maybe I can go this here. And then you play again and you get, oh, I'm over here. I get a little bit further. And eventually you put it all together. I do like Blaster Master, but it's a game that you have to keep playing or you'll forget it. Like if I were to play it again, I would not beat it on my first try again. I'd have to play through it, like set a week aside and just play Blaster Master and play through it. When I played through it the first time, it took me about a week to do. I made it a little further each time, and twice I got a soft lock where I would get stuck in the wall. And it's apparently pretty easy to do when you get to the underground part where you're in the sub. I soft locked twice near the same spot. And then I was doing real good too, so I had to just reset. So you have to deal with stuff like that too. Just a heads up. And the limited continues are a pain. But once you learn what to do and where to go, it's like any game, you play it and you get better at it. Like, you like some shooters. It's a lot of memorizing what comes next and stuff. Blaster Masters is kind of like that, but it's a lot more exploration based, where you got to really explore and you kind of got to know what's coming up. And then once you learn it, you make a little further each time, and it's a little bit of progress that you make that really wants you to keep going.
Another one you should read the manual for too, because that has the stage layout for you. So
it gives you a little map, right?
Stage 3, it tells you in the manual to go back through the area 1 and then go up for stage 4.
That's right, it does, because you got to go back and hover up the tree, right? Up that little tree part, and then you can go, So otherwise you'd be like exploring, because they knew that, hey, read the manual so you don't go further and think, where do I go? You got to go back to go forward. So right. That's true, 100% true.
It's one issue I had with the original Metroid. I've tried Metroid a lot of times, but maybe I should play Zero Mission. I don't know.
I still think Metroid holds up. The first time I played it with a map. There is a map in the manual, but it's a very crude map. But I used that, and I was able to get through it. It took me long, like 8 hours or something, but I was able to get through it without the map by just memorizing where everything was. So you can do it without a map, but it's a lot easier if you make your own map. I just followed the one. There's like a crude map, like Blaster Master or something. I think Blaster Master has a crude map.
Yeah.
But it does.
Crude. It's like it's not like to the pixel. It's just like a rectangle.
Yeah. Okay. No. And that's what Metroids is like. Only it's more artistically designed. It has like Brinstar and forget the places, but it has them labeled. Yeah, wherever it's at. But Metroid, I still think the original is fun to play myself. That could be a generation thing too. Like, I understand completely if you want to play Zero Mission though, because Zero Mission does almost makes it too easy though. Because you have everything mapped out for you. It's almost like you don't really, depending on if you want to like sit down and really, go through the old version and really make progress. You feel more secluded in the NES version than Zero Mission. Zero Mission never really feel lost, which could be a good thing. But I think the atmosphere of the original Metroid is better.
Oh yeah, that's a great game to just hunker down with for like
a whole day. Exactly. Hunker down. Yeah, that's a good. If you want to hunker down with a game you haven't played before, Metroid's a good game to hunker down. I like that, hunker down. I like that. That's fun. Can I use that? That's pretty good.
What are some of your favorite NES games / recommendable ones to the younger crowd?
Recommendable. I would say availability is a big thing, because not everybody like to be available on a console. I would say Castlevania. I think, don't be scared off by the difficulty, especially with the Switch collection. You can pretty much use save states until you get better to go through it without using them if you want to. I would say Castlevania 1 still holds up very well. It's short once you get it. Castlevania 2 could be your miles varies on that one. Castlevania 3 also your miles varies if you wanted to deal with the difficulty, because it is like 1 but significantly more difficult, but there's a lot more to it, multiple paths and stuff. Favorites would probably be Dragon Warrior 3 and 4 are some of my best. 1, 2. I like the Mac Venture games. They're not my favorite though, like Uninvited Deja Vu and Shadowgate. Those can be played today. I think Shadowgate at least can be played with the remaster you played on. I love Mario 2. It's my favorite one on the NES. Go to Mario 2, 3, and then 1. I'm not the biggest fan of 1, which is strange, but 2 I love. Contra, Ninja Gaiden, 1 through 3, 3 being my favorite. Lesser known ones that I think are interesting to try if you want to just fire up on an emulator. If you want to be like a Metroid, a game that you want to get lost in that's even bigger than Metroid, you can try Legacy of the Wizard. That's a fun game. It's like exploration, huge map. You pick one of 5 characters that are a family. Each has separate moves. You pick a set of items at the beginning to go through your stage, and then you have like different areas. The way you tell the areas, if different, each stage has a different music done by Yuzo Koshiro that you can tell each character is what they should be in. It's a very cryptic game though. If you don't like cryptic stuff, you can either use a guide to go through it, point you in the right direction, and then read the manual. You want to read the manual for that one, so get a PDF. Battle of Olympus is like a Zelda 2 side-scroller based in Greek mythology. It's very well translated, so you won't get lost as much. It's very surprising I was able to get through it pretty easily without looking up anything, really. It's very well translated, which is odd for that era of games. Usually the translation is not that good, but this one's pretty good translation, so you shouldn't have too much problem. You'll still have a little problem, but it's very fun. Good music, too. Guardian Legend, if you like shooters, it's like a top-down exploration. Zelda parts where you get items to increase your weapons, find different weapons, and then you take those into the area where you're top-down shooters, and you're basically a girl who transforms into a ship. Very good music. It's gone by Compile, who did other shooters, and I think Broderbund published it. That's a good one. Shatterhand is probably, didn't play that one until 2 years ago, and it's up there with one of my favorites. It's a side-scroller action platformer. Another Conquest of the Crystal Palace is pretty good. It's not as good as Shatterhand or Vice Project Doom, which is another one, but it's decent. And Solstice, if you want a challenging game, like a where the heck do I go kind of game, you have to map out. Solstice is one that I played for the first time over Christmas. I had to map every square inch, and I made progress each bit by bit. It's like a more difficult Blaster Master kind of game where you make progress each time. It's nothing like Blaster Master, but in the way you make progress is you make a little bit further, and you feel fulfilled, and you at the end you can put it all together and make it. It's like an isometric platformer that each room has a little puzzle you got to get through, and you got to go through. Some janky and fun games. NES has a lot of them, like Wizards and Warriors is a very fun game. It's janky in the way it plays, but it's unlimited continues. You start where you're left off, and it's kind of a cool theme to it. There's something about it. Like NES has a lot of games that have like really cool atmosphere and music and really vibe to them, like Wizards and Warriors. There's like Mickey Mouse Capades, which is a Hudson Capcom game. I think Capcom just published it. It's another janky game that's kind of has really good music, and Kid Nicky, a lot of those earlier NES games. And then the Disney games, DuckTales, Tailspin, Darkwing Duck, I think they're all worth playing today. They hold up, and they're easily accessible with the except on Switch with the Disney collection. So if you want to play that. So ones I would recommend, I'd say get the Disney collection, Disney Afternoon collection. If you have a PS4 or Xbox, get the Castlevania collection. If you like shooters, you can get the Contra collection. Contra and I think Contra and Super C are both on there. They're pretty decent. Very good. Like Shadowgate's a re-release. I'm trying to make it so you can play without emulating something that's available to buy. And the Switch Online has some pretty decent NES games on there. They have the Marios. They have all the stuff where you can at least dip your toe into them and see, maybe I want to go a little bit further and see what's there. They have Vice Project Doom, which is a great game, one of the top NES platformers. It's on there, I think. Am I missing? What else is on that Switch? Can't remember what else is on there. I know the Mario games are Vice Project Doom. You can get the Castlevania collection.
Well, there's two I noticed you didn't bring up that I feel like are in your vocabulary, so I'm curious to see where you stand on them. The
Hmm.
first is Star Tropics, and the second
Oh yeah.
is the Pocky and Rocky.
Okay, Star Tropics 1 and 2 are very good. One has a I like one a little bit more. One is a little bit difficult at the beginning. There's some stuff like where the heck you have to like watch where to go very carefully by a shadow on the wall, and it's something you can walk into. And if you don't see that shadow, you'll have to look up where to go. And there's really crappy stuff like you jump in the first, mostly at the beginning of the game, where you jump through a door and you just fall in the water and die. But if you get past that, it's a very fun top-down adventure game. Um, Very charming too. It takes place like it was developed in Japan, but it was never released over there, which is very odd. The guy who did, I think, Punch Out did the game, or I could be mistaken. Somebody did it. What was his name? I forget. It's not important, but it's. I think it's on there too, right?
I think it is.
Okay, yeah, I give it a shot with save states. You can probably get through it. I do recommend Star Tropics to play if you like adventure games on the NES. It's one of the top ones. Star Tropics 2, I don't know if it's on there, so it might not be easily available. I'd say start with Star Tropics, and if you like that, because it might not be for you. Yes, try out 2. 2's a little more. They fix the controls. You could say fixed or not, but where you can move in all directions instead of. So in Star Tropics, when you turn, when you hit up, you don't move. If you're standing looking forward and you hit right, you don't move right away. You kind of like turn to the right, and then you have to hit it again to move.
Tank
So
controls?
it's almost like what's that?
Tank controls?
Kind of like that, but yeah, it could say 8-bit tank controls.
Hmm.
But the game's based on that, so you can't jump off of a platform in the water. Once you jump, you automatically like are locked into that jump, and you're not going to jump into the water. You'll jump onto the grid. It's hard to explain, but if you have a row of blocks and you hit right and they're going to the left, and you hit left and jump, you're automatically going to jump onto it. You don't have to worry about placement of your body. You're automatically locked to that jump on the other block.
Hmm.
So it's almost like a puzzly kind of traversal of a dungeon. In Star Tropics 2, they changed it so you have total control of your movement, but also since the platforms are real small, it's easy to miss jump and fall in the water. It's easier, I should say.
Which do you
Um,
prefer?
I like the first one better. I think the first one has a better feel to it. It has a better atmosphere to it. The second one does like a time traveling adventure where you go back in time to Arthur in Camelot and to Cleopatra in Egypt, and you go all over the world. Sherlock Holmes in England. It's still a good game, but still think the first one has more of a good atmosphere to it. There is something about the first game which I don't know if the Switch Online fixes. There's a code that you need in the game to progress. It only came with a piece of literature in the manual that gave you a letter that you had to dump in water, and the code was 747, and you need that code to progress through the game. So I don't know how the Switch version fixes that, which I've never played through the Switch version. So it'd be interesting if you do play it, Teddy, or somebody else, plays it and could let us know how they fix that, because you need that code to progress.
The first game or the second?
The first one, Star
Okay.
Tropics 1.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, Ninja Gaiden. I mentioned those. A lot of janky games on NES. I think it's really a lot of platformers are NES, and that's one of my favorite favorite genres. And they kind of experimented a lot. They were learning about platformers and what worked, because a lot of NES games were side-scrolling platformers, and I think they set the foundation for what would come, and a lot of them still hold up. Like a lot of they're shorter games, but I think they tend to they're shorter, but they could be hard. But once you learn how to play, as you can probably attest, Teddy, you playing Castlevania and Mega Man, they seem daunting at first, but once you go a little further and further, and you get the gameplay down, it's very rewarding to make it a little further and finally put it together in one run and say, I did that. I took a game that seemed insurmountable at once, and I broke it up and I made it the whole way through. And you feel a sense of accomplishment from that mastery of the game.
Yeah, I think there's comfort in knowing that people before me have done this, you know? Like there's a reason that this game was loved at the time.
Yeah.
So there's no reason I shouldn't be able to. It's just the standards have changed so drastically. You
Yeah.
know, I used to hate Mega Man, absolutely. Like, and even that
Mm-hmm.
first Castlevania, I just had a really hard time with it. But, you know, I think given the tenacity and that kind of like keep pushing model, and also I'm not afraid to use the tools at my disposal. I know there
Yeah.
are multiple perspectives on it, but I'm not afraid to use it to understand the game a little better and to not just get annoyed. If I'm getting annoyed with the experience, then chances are I won't want to go ahead and continue playing it. If that's
Yeah.
got to be the threshold, there would be so many people that would never play NES games nowadays. So like
Exactly.
I think that you should use the tools that are given to you.
Yeah, use them if you want. Don't use them if you want. However you want to enjoy the games, because the games are fun. Don't let something that would put you off from playing it. Use what's there. It's there for a reason. You know,
Yeah.
if you want to put it together, practice it. Use it to practice and say. And if you like the game enough, and say, I want to try that without using those tools, then you can do that, and then come back to it. And that's another way you can play the game if you want. Use what's there.
It's going to get
It's
harder and harder for younger generations to get into NES games.
Yeah,
So
it's a shame.
if you need that crutch, if you need that handicap, I say go for it. You shouldn't nobody is anybody to make rules, artificial rules on you on how to play a video game.
Exactly. It's about fun. Play it how you want to do to have fun. If you want to use save states, if you want to not use save states, do it. Just have fun with the game, play the game. It's there to have fun. Maybe you'll appreciate it, okay, I see what they're going for there. Or you'll play it and you'll be curious and okay, I see that's not for me.
Yeah.
It's much like Game Genie. I used back in the day, or even recently, like Snake Rattle and Roll's a game I wanted to beat my whole life. So I just used the Game Genie and practiced it with unlimited lives. And that way I could get past the parts I needed. And then I felt like, okay, now I want to do that without it. And I was able to do it. So, it's nothing different than using a Game Genie, using save states. It's a tool you can use to make the game fun for yourself or practice or however you want to do.
Right. And some people may be purists, and that's great. Like, absolutely. Like, if you are able to weight train with no bars hold, there's a saying for it.
You're talking about spotting?
No.
We'd have to ask Spencer if weight training.
No holds barred. I don't know. There's a phrase for it. But, like if you're ready to just jump right in, go for it, Sometimes I do feel that way, and sometimes I don't. It's just the era and the type of game, which game it is, it all changes. The NES is so varied and vast.
Yeah, and the games, they were shorter then, so they had to make the difficulty pretty high, or you'd blow through them in a week or something like that. So they had to make them pretty high. But the thing is, once you do practice and get better at them, you can blow through them in pretty much like an hour or two. You know what you're doing. That's how short they are. So I guess I'm saying don't be daunted by how seemingly difficult they feel at first. If you enjoy the game, keep playing it. Use the tools, like you said, ahead of you to save or rewind or whatever, and eventually you will get better, and you probably won't even need those tools. You'll find yourself.
Right, and that's kind of like my badge of honor too. Is like I do cherish knowing that like I cleared Mega Man's 1 through 6 and Castlevania 1, no save states.
Exactly. That's no small feat either. That's a tough thing. There's a lot of people who can say that, but not as many as you'd think. Like it's not like you could go up to somebody. I bet you I go up to 9 out of 10 people on the street and ask if they cleared Castlevania
at all.
And I bet you maybe one would have. It's not as many as you think. I mean, we're just seeing it because like we talk about games a lot, and everybody around us is with games, but. Like the average person who had an NES, I remember Castlevania. I never could get past that part. So to beat it, for you to beat it, that was great to see. I enjoyed that a lot, watching you stream the Castlevania and Mega Man games. That was fun.
Yay!
I was like watching it work, and it's fun.
Cool.
Yeah, I think NES era games. I mean, I just wish they were I wish a lot of times when you just dump them on the service, they're people play them for 5 minutes and they kind of brush them off. But if you stick with them, I think you'll find that a lot of stuff holds up in them. Catchy music, not as many buttons. You just use two buttons. You don't have these fangled shoulder buttons and all these things. That sounds like an old man thing. But sometimes it's nice to have just two buttons and a control pad to play a game. The music's still great, simple gameplay that's addicting and rewarding. I think that a lot of them are the origin of JRPGs, not the origin, but a lot of JRPGs, Dragon Quest and the Dragon Quest games. There you go. That's another one I recommend. You can play them on Switch. I think the
phone ports, the iOS.
Yeah, the phone imports, are on there, so you could try those out. Or play them on your phone too. I still think all the Dragon Quest games. I still think 1, 2, and 3 hold up today.
Yeah, and that first Final Fantasy. I think there's a couple other ones on there, but I did enjoy that. I got a question for you.
Yeah, sure.
So, what would you like to see in the future of NES preservation?
Preservation. I just wish Nintendo I wish they'd dump like a lot of stuff all at once. And when they do that, well, I should say how they do it, I wish they'd give you the manuals and stuff that come with it. Because a lot of these games, like we discussed earlier, you kind of need that stuff sometimes to play it. And without it, you're kind of like have to search for... I want it to be more available and make every available possibility, maybe in the game, like, I don't know, maybe in the game they can tell you somehow, like, manual. I don't know how they do it, but I think a lot of the stuff when you don't have the manual there, a lot of these games, like Zelda is a perfect example. I think if there was a way to put the manual in there with the first Zelda, I think it would make a lot more sense. Preservation, what else? See, that's hard because I don't know. I think a lot of the NES games that are good are on the service already, but a lot of stuff, there's no... Like a lot of like the Mac Venture games, I think it's a lot of licensing. How do you get the licenses? So I guess the answer would be buckle down, get the licenses for, this stuff. I mean, you got the money, Nintendo. You could get the Batman game on there. You could get, Falcom to get Legacy of the Wizard on there. You could get all these stuff that are the less known games and put them on there. Even if you don't think it's people will play it, I think you got to go through the less popular NES games and get them on there and get it with the manuals as a PDF scan or something for people to read it and go through. Just more unknown games, because you got a good stuff on there now, but get more unknown stuff on there.
I have another question, I guess. Do you think somebody can get the NES experience, or like maybe what is the best way for somebody to get the NES experience? Is it something like going through the Switch online service? Is it getting a Retron and buying carts? Is it running an emulator?
It's however you want to play it. Not everybody can buy the carts. They're expensive and they don't always work. You have to clean them. I think the Switch is probably the most easiest way to play that stuff right now. Because Switch has 120 million, something like that, 130 million consoles. I think more people have that. I think that's the best way to play it right now. If you want to, I'd say dabble in that. And if you want to play, either go emulation, or you could get like a clone console or an NES. And I would say for me personally, if you dabble with the Switch and you like those games, and you're interested in getting the actual console, I would get the actual console, but then I would not buy the carts. I would buy an EverDrive, and it would be a higher cost up front, but then you just have all the games you want. You could put all whatever games you wanted on there, and it's on a cartridge you just put in the system and play. Other than that, if you want to play, have you played the Switch and you want to experience more, just emulate it if you don't want to buy an EverDrive and an actual console. But until they actually get a better way of putting these unknown or hard to license games, like a lot of NES stuff is licensed, like the Disney stuff, and Ninja Gaiden's not licensed, but they haven't really. I guess Ninja Gaiden 1 is on there, but 2, but I don't think 3 is. Like, they have to get the less known. Like Princess Tomato, I'd like to see. Konami could get it on there. Guardian Legend. I don't know if Guardian Legend is on there or not. The Dragon Quest, the NES Dragon Quest, I'd like to see on there even. I still think they're fun to play. 2's a little bit hard to play, but with save states, I think you could get through 2 a lot easier on the NES, on the Switch. I just want to see a lot of old, lesser known NES games on there. I would say that would be a start, just because I feel bad because kids now, if they want to play the NES and they want the actual cartridge, it's almost like they're priced out of it. Like to get games like even Mario 3 goes for like $30 now or $25 or something. I think the reasonable way to do it is expect Nintendo to put it on there, but they need to put new stuff, more than the common stuff on there for kids to try out. I just wish there was a service like you could just have a controller you plug into your TV or something, and you just play it off like a Netflix service or something. I don't know.
Well,
something
Netflix,
it's
2 months of Netflix would be 1 cart of Super Mario Bros.
That's true, and I think it's worth it. But a lot of kids, I have a cousin or a distant cousin, really huge into video games. And I was playing. He showed me Tears of the Kingdom, and he saw my other games, and he wanted to play. We played Zelda 1. He knew all the games. He knew like all the Zeldas, all the NES stuff, and he's only 10. But if he wanted to get into games now, I wouldn't recommend him buy an NES and buy a game. He can't afford that stuff, and his parents probably wouldn't want to do that. And it's up to Nintendo, I think, to put more stuff on there for him to play. So when he gets older, he can, keep that up and buy maybe an NES or, whoever knows when he's in his 30s, maybe who knows what's going to happen, how he's going to be able to play them, or is he still going to like them when he's 30? That's a while from now. That's like 20 years from now. So what's going to happen? NES will be so old by then. Will he still care? Will I still care? I would like to think I still care. Will kids nowadays who play NES on Switch, will they still care? It's hard to say. I just want them to be available for them to at least try to, get that, like he did. He played them, he liked them. I want him to see, an easy way for him to experience them without spending money, because he doesn't have a way to make, I guess that would be my one thing.
It's unfair of us to impose our childhoods onto children. They have to have their childhood like the way that they want. And if they don't want to go out and get one console for one game, don't make them. That's fine. Like that would be my philosophy. And like let them come to it on their own. I came to it on my own. I didn't get a Super Nintendo, and that's fine. I don't hold any grudges about that. But I went back later when I was of the means because I cared about it. Because
you wanted to, exactly. Right. And I'm not saying force it. I'm saying make it available for them to choose. Like if it's on the Switch service, they can try it and maybe they'll like it.
Right. I agree with your philosophy. I'm not,
Yeah. But just more availability. That's the thing.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know how you do that. That's easier said than done, with all this licensing and stuff. But I mean, maybe Nintendo put out, you have other stuff. You can get licenses on the NES, put it out there. Same with Super Nintendo, too.
Nintendo is not the company I would put my stock in doing that. I don't think they see it as profitable.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. It has to be money. It's all money. And until it's profitable, it would have to be profitable. I don't know. I just would want it to be more available.
And they're so stingy. They hold on to their IPs and nobody can get them. So it's just Nintendo. We can sit here, beg and plead, and then they'll trickle down. Oh, yeah, you can have a little Kirby's Tilt and Tumble.
Well, not like even Konami. Yeah, that Tilt and Tumble, that's a good one. I was glad to play that finally, again. I gave up on it on the color because I couldn't see it hardly. It was so hard to control, but I played a little bit of it, and it was good to play that one. It's good that that's built. So some more stuff like that would be good. Even Konami has Hudson's Library. they have Princess Tomato under their belt. They're just doing nothing with Princess Tomato. Come on. No, but they have a lot of Hudson stuff, they can put out there, and they're not really doing that. Companies have to be better at putting their old stuff out on these services, I guess. That's what you have to do.
Well, they keep bringing back the same ones.
Mm-hmm.
They put them out on mini consoles.
Yeah.
And like a year later they come out with the service that has the same games.
Yeah.
And then there's also like, the freaking Sega Genesis collection, which also had a PS3 compilation, which also had a collection on the PS2. And
it's always the same games too.
It is.
It was always Golden Axe, Sonic 1, Altered Beast, which I like those games, but there's other to the Genesis library than those games, and they have to get better at putting those unknown things out there.
I think it's like around like 10% of classic games are represented in like.
Yeah, I saw that study that the Video Game Histories Foundation did or something like that. Yeah, and I think they were trying to get it like movies, like classic movies. I think you'd sit down growing up and you just flip through the channels and you'd see a movie on and you'd watch it. There's nothing like that for video games where you can just flip through a channel and try games or something like that. So I don't know. I saw that study though. Yeah, it was like 10% or something like that. But yeah, I don't know what to do. I just want kids to experience it without their old parents saying, "Here, play this. This is how it was. Play it on a tube TV and play." You don't have to play it like that.
I do want to meet the parent that does that.
I mean, there's parents that do that, I'm sure. But I mean, it's just play it however you want. But because these games are good, they're good.
Oh, son, you get a Game Boy Color with no worm light.
Yeah, you start with the 2600, and then you work your way up to the NES. No, ColecoVision, then NES, and then Super Nintendo, Genesis.
That's child abuse.
Yeah. I mean, they're good games, but the kids have to come to them on their own. Like, you remember when you were a kid, if your parents told you to do something, you're not gonna do it. No. You gotta come to it naturally and find out about these games for yourself.
Right.
That was a long talk about NES.
Good. We loved it. We're here with the NES King himself, ladies and gentlemen. Go subscribe. igotkings, YouTube and Twitch.
You. Thank you. I wouldn't call myself a king, but I will take the compliment. Thank you. I will always take a compliment. The older I get, the more I realize to accept the compliment, because you might not always get them, so accept them when they come your way.
King Brian, we salute you.